Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Amy Gretchen. And in today's video, I am working on the last video in my 2020 December Daily album. And I'm really excited to share with you how I ended up finishing this album. But I think most of all, I'm just excited to have it be done. I feel like there's been so much December Daily creation the last month that I am really ready for a break before I dive into December Daily in 2021. So I'm really looking forward to that break. So for day 24, this is the Christmas Eve, and every year we do the exact same thing. It's a tradition of our family to go to my in-laws' house. We eat yummy food, we play games. My mother-in-law is always coming up with really fun games for us to play. We do like a white elephant gift. We celebrate my nephew's birthday because it is his birthday. So we just end up having a really good time. So I feel like I could tell very similar stories every year. And every year I'm trying to decide, how do I want to document this event in my December Daily album? And there were several photos. I actually didn't take a ton of photos, but there was one photo that I thought about using, and I was like, well, I could tell the story of this. And then I got a hold of my sister-in-law. So she takes a bunch of photos with her phone typically, and then she puts them on her SmugMug account, and anyone is available. Well, anyone in the family is available to go look at them and grab them. And so I went onto her SmugMug and I started looking through all the photos that she took, and I ran into this photo of myself asleep. And it actually made me laugh out loud. And it's kind of funny because I have a hard time watching back this video because I'm like, this photo is so hard to look at. But anyway, the reason why I wanted to highlight this, and you can see that I've put down this photo onto the piece of paper, and now I'm looking for a pattern to cover the photo because I don't really want you to look through my album and see this photo of me. I want you to have to kind of search for this photo of me. So I'm making a flip up is what I'm doing. But at any rate, when I saw this photo, I realized, this was kind of the culmination of what the holidays were like for me last year. There was a lot going on. There was a lot going on mentally in my mind and emotionally with my life. And by the end of the holiday season, I was just spent. I was totally exhausted. And that was the story that I felt like would best be suited kind of as I was wrapping up my album, was to tell the story of me being at our family party that we do every year that I always look so much forward to, and being asleep. So I just wanted to encourage you guys, as you are looking through the events that are going on during December, what is it from that event that happens over and over and over again every year? What is it that you want to highlight? What is the story that you want to remember? And like I said, this was just something that I wanted. I mean, it's kind of a silly thing, like, oh my gosh, I fell asleep. Like, do I really want to remember this? But the truth is, I did. I wanted to remember that this was a tougher season for me. This was a harder December for me to get through, that I was doing my very best to be full of joy and, have that holiday spirit with me when I was just utterly, utterly exhausted. So I want to just encourage you to, not necessarily do you have to tell the harder stories, although I would encourage you to tell some of those harder stories during the holiday season. I would just encourage you to pull out one story and make that story be the highlight, especially on an event that happens over and over and over again. All right, so that's the story behind day 24, and that's why I'm trying to, hide that photo. And I've decided to create a page that was 3x8. So you can see I've got my journaling, and then I've got my photo that I'm trying to hide. And I've created this flip up. And this flip up, I used a small piece of transparency, and it kind of is popping up a little bit. I do believe I do reconstruct this because I didn't trim the bottom of this, and you'll see, I don't think I show you how I reconstruct it just because it's basically the same steps and I don't want to make you go through it all again. But I do end up having to cut off a little from the bottom and the top. So I have to kind of put it all back together again. But at any rate, I end up using a piece of paper to do the flip instead of the transparency, because the transparency was just too stiff and it was popping up and I wanted it to lay flat. So I just ended up using a piece of paper, just a regular piece of paper to create the flip, and it seems to be holding up and to be working out just fine. This is not something that's going to be like flipped over and over and over again. So I felt fine with just using a piece of paper. So I have been looking through my pattern papers from various collections of crepe paper. I think the one I'm looking through right now was Snowflake, which maybe came out a couple of years ago, maybe in 2019. I think the pink on the cover was also from that collection. So I'm just kind of looking through some of the papers and trying to decide which one I like the best. So one thing that I also wanted to talk about before we are done with day 24 is the number 24. And where I got the number from. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail in this video because I'm going to do a separate video that shows the album that I made. But I was on the hunt for how I was going to create an album for next year and for this year, 2021, because I'm doing a smaller album. I'm going to be doing a 4x5-ish album. And anyway, long story short, and I will explain this in another video, probably coming out on Friday. That is my plan. I ended up being able to get my hands on a Glowforge, and I ended up cutting that 24 with some acrylic that I bought for the album that I'm going to be using for next year. So I promise you, I will show you all of that. I will show you my album. I will show you the other things that I cut, but I made that 24 just in Illustrator, and then I had it cut on a Glowforge. So super excited about that. You guys, I do not own one, but I was able to get my hands on one, and like I said, I promise I will share all about it because it's very exciting. I was very excited about it. All right, so back to what I'm doing. So I'm now finished with the front part, and I just want to add on some transparency on the side because that's how I want to get it into the album. And that's going to allow me to have that flip up without it interfering at all, with the rings in my album. So I put that on, and then I'm just going to mark it, and I'm going to use my 6-hole punch in order to punch that out. Now I'm trying to decide at what point I realize, I think it's at this point. Okay. This is the point that I realize I've made a mistake. You can see I'm starting to deconstruct it, but then I didn't show you how I put it all back together. I've now put it all back together. Like I said, I think I realized it once I was measuring it up against the page protector. I was like, oh my gosh, this is too long for my album. And so you can see I kind of shrunk the photo down a little bit, and then I kind of cut off the bottom a little bit as well. I think it was just, I was off by 1/4 of an inch, but it was more than what I wanted it to be. So anyway, you guys, that is it for day 24. Now I still need to work on the back side, but I believe I show you all of that as I'm working on day 25. I did want to use that black cardstock, but it was not tall enough because it was only 8 inches and my paper was 8¼ inches. So anyway, we are moving on to day 25. So again, for day 25, it's one of those things that happen every single year, right? Christmas morning, Christmas day, every single year. This time, actually, I did not have a lot of photos. I probably took like 10 photos. I really wanted to give myself the gift of being present and not taking all the photos, but I did end up taking a lot of videos. So I guess you could say, were you 100% present? I don't know. But I did do more videos this year than I did photos. My dad ended up taking a bunch of photos. So the photos that I'm using, the majority of the photos that I'm using are photos that I took from my dad. So before I jump ahead and get all into that, let me explain to you what I'm doing. I'm just working on the backside of day 24. And I'm thinking, I was not really sure what I wanted to put on the backside, if it was going to be a number or maybe just like an embellishment or something. I hadn't quite decided. So what I did is I created some paper, and I created that paper. I just printed it off, and I did do a little bit of, it's actually hard to tell, but I did do a little bit of foiling on some of the stars there. And I wanted to add that on, but it was see-through because the paper I was using was see-through. And of course you could see the the text on the back side of the paper. So that's why I ended up putting on the white piece of paper first, so you wouldn't be able to see the text in the background. So you can see I was just kind of playing around with adding a number and kind of deciding how I want to open up this page in my album. So these are the photos that I was talking about. Like I said, the majority of them are ones that my dad took that I just asked him to send to me. And so I decided that I would just make them smaller photos and that I would do them in one of the 2x2 pockets. So I grabbed over that page protector and I'm just going to make a collage like I did for, was it day 13 that I kind of did, I used these pockets and I just did a bunch of photos and I did some embellishing. And I've got to be 100% honest. Like at this point, it was later in the day. I was actually really tired of thinking about this and I just wanted it to be done. And so I don't feel like I spent a ton of time on this pocket like I probably would have. I was just like grabbing whatever embellishments I could find and I'm like, oh yeah, this would work. I did, however, make this transparency that I'm cutting. So those are gold lines and I created that using the foil quill. You guys, I just literally cannot get enough of the foil quill. I think I've used it almost on every single page. So you should probably just plan on me using it a lot in my December daily this year, just because I think it's such a great way to be able to add something really special in your album, just to add that foil that really captures the eye. So I think that's why I use it so much. But anyway, I did create that because I thought it would be a really great backdrop to some of the embellishments, like that Christmas heart. That Christmas heart actually came in the 2021 kit, not in the kit, but it was one of the add-ons that you could purchase this year. They're a lot like the circles from last year, so you could use the circles if you had the circles. So like I said, I was just kind of playing with some stuff that I had on my desk, and I ended up grabbing over this same pink piece of paper. And full disclosure, again, I probably would have chosen a different paper. And I actually think I might go back and change that top paper. Instead of pink, I think I might do something different or cut one of the Fa La 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 papers because I like that a little bit better. But at any rate, it is what it is. And my album's done. And so I probably won't go back because I kind of just want to get it finished. I want to just close the book on this and have it be done. Not because I didn't like it, but just because it's like, we're done, right? It's over. I don't need to go back. I don't need to fix anything more, right? So at this point, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm done. And then I was like, wait, I forgot the photo of my family. Oh yeah, and the journaling for this page. So I went to do the journaling. I printed out the photo. So there's a photo that I wanted to print that was 4x6. And you can see that on my desk now. And then I've got my journaling that I ended up finishing off with, again, the foil quill. Like I said, I really, really love the foil quill. That Mary is a digital file from a couple years ago. If I remember right, it was a physical stamp, but it was also a digital stamp as well. If it is in the shop, I will definitely link to it. I know they've made some changes with some of the digital products that they have covered, but it's such a great set. And you'll see that I end up changing this card. So remember earlier when I was saying, I don't want to make any changes. I just want to get this done. La, la, la. Well, at the end of it, what ended up happening is when I wrote my journaling, or I found the Mary card first, and then I wrote my journaling. And afterwards, when I read my journaling, it was all about remembering. It was like, I remember this, and I remember this, and I remember this. Because honestly, I didn't remember a lot of things. So I was just trying to pick out the stuff that I did remember from the day. And then when I looked at it, I was like, this doesn't really go. And when I was looking over at my digital files, again, I realized because this was a stamp set, there was a word with the same font that said remember. And so I ended up reprinting it. And I don't do the foil quill because, again, I was like, let's be done with this, right? So I don't end up doing the foil quill, but I do just reprint it. And then I actually changed out the Christmas morning chaos and joy because it wasn't really chaotic. And I realized this doesn't really fit. The Christmas morning does, but nothing else is really fitting. So you'll see that coming up. I might show you the reconstruction of that. I think I do. I can't remember. Also, for this, I wanted there to be a little bit tabbed, so I grabbed over that same sticker set that I used for day 24 when I made the tab with the rectangles. I don't think I really talked about that, but you saw me do it. And this is the point where I start reconstructing it. But anyways, I put those two circles back to back. That's just kind of a little tab that someone could hold on to. So again, I'm just pulling out the cards and then adding the cards back in. So the Dear Christmas, I love you, thank you, love me, that came from this year's kit. Really love that card, and it was sitting out, so I was looking at it. I kind of have a Raz card that has all of my supplies in it, and I was like, oh my gosh, that really fits really well. So I decided that I was going to use that. And so I replaced the card. And then of course I redid that journaling like I had mentioned, and then just stuck it back on. I was having a little bit of trouble trying to cut off that one side because of the tab, but I just end up redoing it. Luckily, the stickers go on just right. Although they didn't fit right with the journaling that I changed. So I had to reposition it. And you'll see that I end up having to take some of the sticker off of the photo, but it worked out. It worked out where I didn't have to do any reprinting. So I really don't like having to redo stuff. And you saw that I ended up having to redo stuff a couple of times because of my mistake with the first one. And then this one, I just felt like that Mary just did not fit. So I wanted to change it. So anyway, you guys, that is going to be it for days 24 and 25. Like I mentioned earlier, I am really excited to be done with my 2020 album, and I'm super in love with how it turned out. And I'm just glad to be able to put it on my shelf and to be done with it. So also one thing I wanted to mention is that 'Tis the Season, that rectangle, I pulled that over not knowing if I wanted to put it there. I thought maybe adding another piece of green would be good. So I'm testing it out to see if I like it. But anyway, you guys, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate your support with my channel. If you are new here, please hit that subscribe button and the bell so you can be notified when I've got new content. We'll see you in the next one, you guys. Bye.